So, something that I've been learning about recently is the superego, the ego, and the id, Freudian psychology. It's very interesting. When I look back on my own life and everything, so that, by the way, there is the pleasure principle, and there is the reality principle, right? The pleasure principle is kind of like what first comes, like when we're in infancy and everything. It's immediate gratification, instant gratification. Um, and I'm not sure if the reality principle is the opposite in terms of like, well, no, like obviously, like if your intention is to achieve great things, you need to delay gratification. I'm not sure if that goes into the reality, but I'm very fascinated by this model and everything. Um, so yeah, the id is all about like pleasure, immediacy, just all of that stuff. And then the superego is like, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. So like the superego is like this guidance in like the right direction, and the id is just like a fucking savage. It's crazy. And yeah, like as I'm learning about this, like I'm looking at like my own life and everything, and just kind of like the way that things have unfolded for me. The times that the id was very, just there, and times that the superego was there, and like the ego in and of itself being in the balance and stuff. This is so interesting. Freudian psychology is very fascinating. I also appreciate, I guess you call it Jungian psychology, Carl Jung. But I think that, like, when you look at the world, right? When you look at, like, the overall isness of the world, there's a lot of idness in it, right? Like, it's kind of like, like you look at people and stuff, and you see zombies and stuff. You see people that are just fucking amped up, overclocked on fucking dopamine, drained out of their fucking mind. Like it's so interesting. Like when you look at like the just like what we seek. It's like there are those what's the those spinning things that are meant to kind of like hook you into an illusion, or what's the what's the word for hypnotize you, right? These things are like they hypnotize us. Pleasure is a very, like we walk after it, or not not just walk after it. We run after it. We do crazy things just to achieve a sense of pleasure. And when I say pleasure, I don't just mean like, okay, I recognize that it's going to take me a year to create this thing that I'm sure that people are going to love. That's delaying gratification. But when it comes to pleasure, like people, like we do crazy things. It's crazy. Like whether that's like, I don't know, like I mean, I'm not gonna call, fasting or starving oneself a crazy thing. There are incredible benefits to that. It's so interesting, this balance between the super ego and the id, and like what it means. It's so interesting. It's so interesting. And like for me personally, like I've learned recently that the id is all about, like pleasure, right? Like immediate fucking pleasure. Like it immediately needs that gratification, instant gratification, right? And like I've looked at the way that like infants are and like children are, right? I've looked at the way that they are, and like I've even thought myself like, why can't you be this way? Why can't you be that way? And it's so interesting because like I have personally believed in the past that there's something wrong with these what I'd call what I'd call neurotic creatures. Looking at babies, looking at toddlers, looking at infants. I can't believe I just said that because it's so funny. It's so funny to think about, but like it makes sense because it's like, okay, well, there's the id, this, like, I don't know, savage of a creature that just wants to fucking, uh, as I've heard it said, fuck and destroy everything, right? But it needs to be guided with this sense of conscious direction by somebody who understands the superego. Now, that's not to say that everything within the superego, in terms of shoulds and shoulds not, shoulds and should nots, is cookie cutter, one size fits all, right. Like, I don't agree with that, but I do understand this idea that, like, like say for instance, if what you want to do is, I don't know, get a degree in something, right? It's going to take some time. So therefore, you're going to need to have the capacity to delay gratification, because that's not going to happen overnight. You know, like it's not like eating a cupcake. It tastes fucking good, and then it's over. Like you can have it whenever you want. You can't have a degree, even if it's just like a regular fucking degree. You know, like an associate's. You can't have that overnight. What you can have overnight is a drink. What you can have overnight is a fucking cupcake. So there are some things in life that you have to learn to delay gratification for, and I don't even know if that's what the superego is there for. I think the superego is this kind of, it's the angel on your shoulder. It's the difference between right and wrong, and then the id is the devil, right? So like the superego is like like, don't give in to the easy thing, because if you do, or yeah, you shouldn't give in to the easy thing, because if you do, you're going to teach yourself to give into the easy thing. And then life's going to be a lot fucking harder for you, because you're not going to further your capacity to persist with delayed gratification and actually achieve something over the long term. It's so fascinating how this thing works. But now, like, looking at this whole thing of the id and stuff, like with children, I'm realizing, like, it's like, okay, well, you have this little savage here that just wants to fucking get immediate pleasure with everything, and you have to teach it no, 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 and it doesn't want to hear no, 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 no. So there's going to be a whole lot of, screaming and crying and, tantrums and all that stuff. But one's own capacity as a parent to guide that little, little id in the right direction, to be able to learn, excuse me, how to, delay gratification and not just fucking seek pleasure all the fucking time. Because there are some people, like, I have known people in my life that have been like that. Of course, not naming any names, but, like, I've seen that firsthand. And, like, in my own experience, like, I've been, like, I've had my superego be present in the picture and, like, have this idea of, like, yeah, I don't like that. Or, like, well, if you want this, you shouldn't be doing that. Right? Exactly. Superego. And then the id is like, well, I guess you never grew out of that stage of id. Or you have an id that's present, but you have the superego that's like, no, you can't do that, because if you do that, you're not going to get this. I'm learning about the superego, the id, and the ego now, and it's so interesting. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to explore that because I thought that was fun. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. By the way, on this day, I don't really like the idea of Thanksgiving because of, like, historical events. But in terms of gratitude, I appreciate this day in terms of gratitude and expressing gratitude and just being grateful.